Okay, so we finally have some news about what the upcoming live-action Netflix adaptation of Cowboy Bebop is going to look like. And I gotta tell you, not hating it. Welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
It's a me,
Dario!
Woohoo! Let's go!
Alright, so before we get started, let me just give you a quick reminder. Any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Dario the Show on Instagram or at Super Dario World. Also, follow me on Facebook. The page is Super Dario World. I update the links to all my podcasts there. Later on today, I will be having a podcast with my kid, at least I'm supposed to. Sometimes he flakes. So far, I think we've been good every week, but yeah. We will be talking about the best, rankings of the best superhero movies. Now, we're not going to give you our own. We're just going to go through a list that I found. I think that one should be kind of short, and I want to keep it kind of short because I'm currently playing the new Final Fantasy VII Remake. So I want to play at least 6 hours of it so I can give you a review. You know, when I do reviews, I try to measure it by how much it costs versus how much time it should entertain you. Anyway, the point is I'm going to do a review of the first 6 hours of the game, see if it was at least worth your money. If you make $10 an hour, then it means it should entertain, and it costs you $60, it means it should entertain you for at least 6 hours. So that's usually how I do my reviews. And I want to go back to playing it, so I'm going to try to keep that one short. But yeah, it should be up later today. Again, Super Dario World on Facebook. I'll post the link right there. Also, the link to my podcast in Spanish, which I do once a week, is up there. Everything is the best place for you to find anything Dario related. Anyway, so about this particular piece of news, I remember back when I first heard of it, back when I first heard inklings about Netflix wanting to do a live-action adaptation of Cowboy Bebop, my immediate gut reaction was, no! Leave it alone! Just leave it alone! Leave it alone. In general, I've found that adapting anime to live-action doesn't work. In fact, sometimes fantasy in general doesn't really work that well in live-action, or at least compared to anime. And so far, the only decent adaptation of anything anime or even manga-related to live action that's been good has been Alita Battle Angel. I forgot the word Alita for a second, but yeah, I think that's been the best one so far. Everything else has pretty much been a giant piece of garbage. I remember I was super excited to watch the live action adaptation of Attack on Titan, and it's one of the most horrifying things I've ever done. They completely butchered the story. And let me just give you a quick explanation of how badly they butchered the story. So, the main character's motivation for that particular TV show is that, imagine, Titans are basically, imagine a giant zombie that regenerates. So, like a 15, 20, 30-foot giant monster that eats humans that regenerates, if you heard it. So that's a Titan. It's a horrifying thing. Anyway, his whole motivation in the show is that he saw one of these things eat his mother when he was a child, right? He saw him eat it right in front of him, and he hates them with a passion. Here, in the movie, they made it that he thinks that they ate his quote-unquote girlfriend, and then it turns out that the girl wasn't ever really hurt. She was fine. So, it's like, are you kidding me? Did anybody watch the show? Did anybody here even watch the fucking show? You completely butchered the characters, the main character's entire fucking motivation. The thing that... it really upset me. But let's not talk about that. That was... Oh, and they did a two-parter thing. The first part was really bad, but it tried to kind of sort of follow the show story. The second one, they were just like, fuck it. Let's just do whatever the fuck we want. They already gave us the money. Let's go weird. Let's be wild. Anyway, the point here is there really aren't that many great live-action adaptation of things. A perfect example of this, Netflix did it. And this is one of the reasons why I was very concerned here. And I'll get into what Cowboy Bebop is. I realize I haven't explained it yet. But watch the Netflix version. Actually, no, don't watch it. The Netflix version of Death Note. Now, Death Note is widely considered the first half. A lot of people consider it's a great introduction to anime. It's maybe the greatest game of cat and mouse I've ever seen. The first half is amazing. The second half, the ending is so bad that it's almost Game of Thrones level bad how bad the ending is of the second half. So if you watch the first half, Stop there, and you'll be happy. It'll be great. It's one of the greatest things of all time. The second half is just bad. It's bad, particularly that ending. Anyway, the live-action version of that is even worse. It's even worse than the second half of Death Note. It's brutal. I hated it. There was one or two things that I thought were clever that they took specifically from the show and they kind of managed to adapt. But overall, it was just a horrifyingly bad experience, and I hated almost every second of it. So after that, after watching that train wreck, I hear that Netflix is planning on making a live-action adaptation of Cowboy Bebop, which is widely considered the greatest anime of all time. It's a debate. There's a big debate, but it's on every single top 10, maybe every single top 5 list of the best animes of all time. It'll be there. In my list of my favorite anime of all time, it was there. It was number 6. And it wasn't a list of the best. It was just my favorite, my personal favorite. I have a few issues with it, and I'll get into what those issues are. But for those of you who don't know what the show is, imagine a group of bounty hunters in space. It's the future. Humanity has expanded throughout the universe, and it's this particular ship known as the Bebop, and the adventures of the crew in it, where they're bounty hunters, so they travel around space trying to collect bounties, which means they just basically go around capturing bad guys. That's the gist of the show. Now there's a longer overarching story, but they don't really get into that until the final part of the show, the very end. The first part is just mostly them going through their adventures. It has amazing animations. It has great colorful characters. The themes are great. Like I said, the animation is great. The music is probably my favorite part. Like it's one of the best scores of all time. I love the intro. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam. I fucked that one up. I'm not a music guy. I'm sorry. And also, there's a siren out here, but that's California for you. Anyway, I fucked it up again. Jesus Christ. Anyway, I'm not going to try it again. So, what was I saying? All right. Great show. Overall, fantastic. And like I said, considered one of the best of all time. Highly, highly recommended. It's been it's been inspiration for a lot of sci-fi related shows, movies, and even stories in general since it aired. Like, a lot of people took a lot of stuff from it, and I'll get into one in particular. But overall, great show. So to me, it's like, why don't we just let things lie, right? We don't need... it's a cash grab, right? You're just trying to get money. Why? I mean, I'm going to watch it, I know, but if they make it... Because I got to critique it. I got to be like, how badly did they butcher this? But we have the good one. Why can't we just let it be the good one? This is the best medium for that particular story. Let's just leave it at that. So I was very upset. Then I heard that they casted John Cho. John Cho, you may remember him from Harold and Kumar. And so I was like, this dude is Spike Spiegel, which is the lead. I don't know. He's too old. I don't see him as actually like a badass, like a badass hand-to-hand combat fighter. I don't see it. Dude's a good actor. Dude's a nice dude. I don't know how committed he is to this particular franchise. So concerns all around. Until today. Today, I'm actually changing my tune a little, and that's because of an interview that the writer of Cowboy Bebop did. And in this interview, he talks about, by the way, his name is Javier Grillo Marchak. I have no idea how you say his name. Grillo Marchak? I butchered that worse than a song. Anyway, he did an interview in which he talked about how he's planning to adapt it. So we have about 3, 4... Well, we have quite a few quotes from the guy, but I'll start with the first one because this is the one that really caught my attention. Here we go. You can't look at Cowboy Bebop and say, well, that's just a takeoff point. We're going to give them different hair and different clothing, and we're going to call it something different. And it's just sort of going to be a loose thing. If you're going to do Cowboy Bebop, you're going to do Cowboy Bebop, you know? It's kind of like doing Star Wars. So, first off, he's expressing commitment to the story, commitment to what the story is. It's not... Something that really bothers me when they do an adaptation is like, all right, okay, we'll just grab characters by the same name, something that vaguely relates to it, and we'll say it's an adaptation. No. If you're going to adapt a story, you have to... You need to, first off, identify what made that story great. why these characters work the way they do. You have to get into their minds. You have to get into the heart of the story. What is it that fans loved about it? So it sounds like at least he's committed there. He's committed to doing Cowboy Bebop, right? Good. So far, so good. Let's continue. You got a show where you have 26 episodes that are full of very colorful villains, very colorful stories, very colorful adversaries, bounties, and all that. We're not going to do one-to-one on all those stories because we're also trying to tell the broader story of Spike Spiegel and the Syndicate, Spike Spiegel and Julia, Spike Spiegel and Vicious, and all that. But we are looking at the show and saying, who are some of the great villains in this show, and how can we put them into this broader narrative? So that we're telling both of the big stories that Cowboy Bebop tells. This is pretty important, and it's one of my pretty much my only critique that I have for Cowboy Bebop. So my big critique for Cowboy Bebop, my big issue with it, is the lack of an overarching story that I really just mentioned it. The lack of an overarching story in the beginning. Like, there's an overarching story at the end, and it's very important, and it's great, and it gives you one of the best anime endings of all time, at least in my humble opinion. But I would have liked to... It's almost like every episode is its own thing, and so you could actually pick up any episode and it won't really matter. Some matter, some don't, but you can randomly watch an episode, you doesn't really care. There's nothing really keeping you there for the next one. Overarching stories are important for that reason, because you wanna stay in there, you wanna see how it's going, you wanna see the progress each of the characters make and all that stuff. So it sounds like they are actually planning on doing that specifically. Like, they identified the main weakness of the show, and they're like, all right, let's fix that. Let's add at least a little bit of the big story on every single episode. Let's add a piece of the broader story into the little stories. And at the same time, keeping all the little villains that were there that made each episode special. Honestly, it's great. And one of the things that this particularly reminds me of, and we have a formula for this, all right? And it in a weird way, this formula came, and this show did it because of Cowboy Bebop. Now, there was a little show called Firefly. Firefly is basically a Western in space, and it's about the adventures of a crew on a Firefly-class ship called the Serenity. That's what the show's about, but every single episode has a little bit of story in it. Now, if I ever meet Joss Whedon, I will ask him. I don't know if anybody else has ever asked him. I will ask him, did you watch Cowboy Bebop, and how much did you take from... If the answer is yes, is how much did you take from Cowboy Bebop? Because my humble opinion is that he took a lot. He took a lot from the world of how Cowboy Bebop, how things work there, from the characters themselves. So and by the way, Firefly, considered one of the best sci-fi shows of all time. It's a tragedy that people still mourn today the fact that it got canceled. People still talk about that show today. They still want more today. It's, again, one of the greatest sci-fi shows of all time. Probably the best show of all time that got canceled before it should have. It was so popular that they had to make a movie afterwards to kind of, in a way, wrap up the story and to make fans sort of satisfied because they were rabid. They were really upset that it got canceled. Anyway, so, like I said, super popular show. So they kind of fixed the situation with Cowboy Bebop. Again, one's a Western, one is closer to film noir, like a detective show, darker. But they have a lot of similarities. And again, every episode of Firefly was a little bit of the adventures of the crew on a ship, but within a bigger world, a broader world, a bigger overarching story. So, like I said, I was very concerned because the adaptation of an anime into a live-action thing is usually not very well. But if they manage to use the Firefly formula on this show, because, again, at its heart, at its root, they're very similar shows, it could work. I could actually see it working. Now, they don't have to go too deep into the anime side. They could stay more on the human side of things, which worked. That's exactly what Firefly did, so it could work. So, in a weird way, Firefly took from Cowboy Bebop, and it helped make it great. And now it's possible that Cowboy Bebop could take from Firefly and make that great. So to me, that's exciting. That's a good thing. And it's important that this guy actually looks like, it sounds like he's committed to making it right. It sounds like Netflix has been committed to making really good shows. It makes a lot of crap, right? Netflix makes so much garbage, so much garbage, but there's great shows in there, and those are the ones that they try to keep true to heart. Like, for example, The Witcher. They figured out what is it that made The Witcher special, and they try to stick to it. Particularly, all right, Javier Grillo, this guy, he wrote a few episodes, and he was a producer of the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. That show is the perfect example of capturing exactly what made, in this case, a movie special, and bringing it to life on a different medium and expanding on it. And it's similar enough yet different enough. It's at root the same thing. At its core, it's the same thing. It's the thing that people really loved, and adapting it through to a different medium. So I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt here, at least for the writer. As far as the actors, like I said, John Cho's cool. I'm not crazy about all the rest of the casting, but it's good information. The thing that I also really like here is that they hired the original director, Shinichiro Watanabe. I think that's how Shinichiro, I think that's how you said it. I don't know, as a consultant for it. So he's gonna keep him, hopefully keep him honest. But honestly, I'm excited. I'm officially excited for what Cowboy Bebop could be. Will it be the next big thing? I don't know. How many episodes? It's 10. Will it be worthy of the name? I don't know, but I think people are starting to figure it out. I think with James Cameron and Robert Rodriguez figuring out kind of the way to adapt, make a good adaptation of anime. I think if they follow the Firefly formula that Firefly took from Cowboy Bebop, it could actually work out. Also, I kind of like what he's saying. I'll just finish reading the other stuff that he said, because I feel like it's a good sign. So, everybody has a different idea of what's the best version of a show is, you know? And a lot of Cowboy Bebop fans believe that the anime is the best version of that show. We hope that we can convert them to what our version of it looks, and I think that it's a wonderful translation, a wonderful addition, and a wonderful addition to the original canon. We're deep enough in a world where fandom is important to the existence of shows that people like me don't ever really lose sight of that. I think that there are always going to be tone-deaf reboots of things and all that, but we're fans. You know, we come at this as fans. We love genre, we love science fiction, and we love Cowboy Bebop. So, a lot of really good things there. And it sounds like he understands the most important thing, and that's you need to understand what the fans want. Honestly, there's nothing wrong with giving the fans what they want. A lot of these people, and this is the issue with a lot of adaptations, reboots, and sequels and all that stuff. They just want the money. All right, they're like, oh, we'll just put the same name there. We'll put the same character, and we'll just make money. We'll be giving them what they want, but they never really identified. We want a good story. That's what we want, and sometimes we already have the good one. We just want a continuation of that good story if it's necessary. Sometimes it's not necessary to do things. But if you're going to do it, figure out what the fans want. Figure out what people loved about it to begin with. And it looks like that's what they're looking at. Sometimes it really bothers me when you can tell it's just a cash grab. Like, oh, well, this thing was successful. We do something similar again and we'll make money. Yay. No, it's bullshit. I hated it. Like, for example, the Lion King adaptation. I've complained about it for months, which is the same fucking thing because it's still an animated movie. It's just way better effects, and they took all the charm from all the characters. It's even the same songs. They made the same movie but worse, and so stuff like that really annoys me. It's just a cash grab. Here, like I said, at least he's saying that, and he's saying that they're making this movie from the perspective of the fans. They saw the story as fans, and as fans, they want to make something that's worthy of the name. So, good so far. Like I said, I like other stuff that he did, that he's done. The directors that they got, one of them is pretty well. The one that directed the most episodes, I'm not crazy about, but he's also the producer. He created the TV show Zoo, which I'm fine with, but the other guy, the dude who's actually going to make the pilot and the second episode, his name is Alex Garcia Lopez. This guy's actually pretty good. He's done a lot of great stuff for Well, for Netflix, he directed episodes of Daredevil, which is it's probably my favorite superhero show of all time. He directed the first 2 episodes, I think. Oh, is it the first 2 episodes or the first few? Well, he directed episodes of The Witcher. I don't want to say it's the first. It's the first 2. I need to double check that. He also directed episodes of The Punisher. So he's done a lot of good stuff for Netflix, and it sounds like he's actually committed to what he does. Because, like I said, Daredevil, probably my favorite Netflix show overall, and my favorite by far superhero TV show. So it sounds, honestly, I'm honestly officially excited for a live action Cowboy Bebop. I never thought I would say that, especially because for a really long time I've been saying it doesn't work. Live action versions of anime don't work. This one, however, I'm hopeful for. I'm hopeful that Netflix is kind of figuring it out, and hopefully they're committed. They're starting to. Hopefully they start to commit on making high quality shows instead of just throwing out garbage everywhere, because they make too much stuff and most of it sucks. But anyway, that's it for today. As always, any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Dario the Show on Instagram or at SuperDarioPeriodWorld. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you again next time.